Hey, how's it going, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, my name is Big Ball Vlogs. I do reviews, news, everyday vlogging, and every once in a while I'll do a tutorial. If this video was educational or somewhat entertaining, please consider smashing that like button and maybe subscribing to the channel for new videos when I post them. So first off, may sound different. You're probably hearing a hella of a noise coming from the aquarium behind me because I am changing microphones. I had a little bit of a failure with my lavalier mic. Until I get another one, I'm going to be using tabletop mic. Get that explanation out of the way. And today I'm just going to be talking about the Mavic Air 2. It's probably going to be the last video I talk about the Mavic Air 2 for a while. I mean, I went over the firmware update, did a couple demos. I mean, a lot of people are probably beating the Mavic Air 2 to death until the next DJI drone comes out. And, there aren't many accessories that I know of. So I wanted to talk about one last thing. Maybe I'm going to say one last thing this time because I think this is probably going to be the end of the Mavic Air 2 series. But I was talking about the firmware update last week, and I went over how there was an update to the Waypoints library, or there was an update that gave you the Waypoints library. And I had a Mavic 2 Pro, and that's when I think the Waypoints library was actually introduced. And to be honest with you, I never really got what I wanted out of the Waypoints library. I wanted to do the transition that DJI advertised, where you would shoot, morning, noon, and night, and then get this transition that looked like you just did one hyperlapse that lasted an entire day, and it was like an extremely smooth transition. So, because I didn't get it, because there were like some bugs in the Mavic 2 Pro, I thought I would try it. So over the last couple of days, in fact, since like Friday, over the last couple of days, I've been getting my butt up early in the morning, like before sunrise, and trying to go out and use the Waypoints plan library to shoot a lot of videos so that I can kind of stitch it together and then come up with this amazing transition cutscene thing that looked like I shot in the middle of night and transitioned through noon and then into maybe sunset if I could do it. But I gotta tell you, I couldn't do it, and it's not because I couldn't edit it, it's just because I couldn't do it. So what I thought I would tell you about, because I know maybe a lot of you are probably going to try this same thing, I was going to go over some of the things, there are some of the issues that I was having with it, discuss the problems that I was having with it, and kind of give you my impressions on it, and maybe give you an impression of how I think it could be used in order to save your sanity if you're trying to do that day to night transition. I think DJI may have used a little bit of editing software more than, drone capabilities with that, because I absolutely could not get it to work. But with that said, let's talk about it. So like I said, it's the Waypoints library. So that means if you set up a Waypoints flight plan, you should be able to save it to the library and then go into the library and hit that flight plan and then just fly it over and over and over again. And that's what you kind of want to do if you want to set up, like this transition thing where you're going from day to night. You want to fly it like as many times as you can during the morning, noon, night, giving it, a specific amount of time between flights so that you have not like a billion photos that you have to stitch together, but enough, differences in the sky so that you can actually see the sun coming up and then the sun coming down. I think to use this, it would be better to use maybe not exactly the sky. Like if you have a sky with clouds in it, as those clouds start to move around, you're definitely going to see that as you're trying to create this smooth transition. So I think for this particular use, you might want to do something where you're kind of like pointing down or aiming down at the ground or at a specific point of interest and not picking up what's going on in the sky. It's just kind of difficult to manage what's going on in the sky with clouds, the position of the sun. It's definitely going to give you some jumps as you go through and try to shoot this video. So if you haven't done it, all you have to do is go into your hyperlapse feature, and then you would click on the waypoints selection in hyperlapse, and then at the bottom it's going to give you the option of setting up a waypoint. It's pretty cut and dry on how to do it. It's not very difficult. There are 3 different things that you can do to set up a waypoint. You can move the drone in any direction at any distance. The next thing you can do is rotate the drone in any direction, and then the last thing you can do is pivot or tilt the camera up and down in any direction. And the software is going to tell you whether or not you have set up a successful waypoint. If you do not move far enough, it's going to tell you you haven't moved far enough. If you've moved the gimbal too far because it's trying to create this smooth transition, it's going to tell you you overshot or your movement is too little. So, pretty easy on how to set it up. And once you set it up, the only thing you have to do at that point is just hit the go button, and it will start the Waypoints flight plan. So it would say, hey, if you've ended up, a couple hundred yards from where you started, it'll say, hey, drone is now moving to the original flight position, and it's going to start shooting that waypoint. Now, and that's what I did. So I got up, I set up my waypoint, and I started flying, and then I flew. I tried to set up a 5-minute waypoint, so I knew I would get at least 3 different flights in one battery. I got 3 batteries, so that would give me at least 15 different flights that I can kind of try to stitch together. If there were any issues, I would have some additional footage. And I started off with shooting. And yeah, I was out there for, a while, trying to shoot this thing. People were driving by. I was like, what's this guy doing in the dark? Looking all creepy, sitting here watching the screen. It just took a while. So, I shot the first one, I shot the second one, I shot the third one. And then it was time for me to change out the battery. And this is where I ran into issues with the flight plans and how you save them and how you kind of execute them for the next flight plan. So it seems like to me, when you stop the flight plan and you save it, there is no real like save button or execute button. Let me think if I'm saying that clearly. So when you stop the flight plan or you want to open up the flight plan, you have to tap on the little file in the left corner, and that's like a save button. It's not really like a file, opening button like you would go into, your program files and find the file and open it. It seems like it's more of a save button, because whenever I tapped on that button, it saved the opened flight plan as a new flight plan. So I started off at like 5 something in the morning. I flew the first flight plan for 3 batteries. And then when I went to execute another flight plan with a new battery, somehow I opened it up and it accidentally created another flight plan. So issue number 1, let me just backtrack. Issue number 1 is the fact that the file button doesn't seem to be an open file button, but more of a save button. Now, once it created that new flight plan, for some reason, and I had this on 2 separate occasions, because like I said, I've been shooting this for like an entire weekend and this morning, just to make sure that it wasn't a, operator error. For some reason, it would, for random reasons, just add more time or photos to the flight plan. So on 2 different occasions, I shot a longer time lapse, which is like 13 minutes, but I realized that at 13 minutes I was going to have trouble keeping up with batteries and recharging. So I shot it for the first time and I shot it for the second time, and then each one of those videos was 4 photos, which took about 13 minutes, and then all of a sudden I go back in and it was either shorter or longer. So it was either like 450 or 575, and I do not know why. It added or subtracted, and then I would shut it down and open it back up and then try to find the flight plan that I originally shot with, and for some reason it had overwritten it, but it just, it was difficult to kind of keep track of these files and fly the same flight plan. So like I said, I did that twice. I did it over the weekend, and then, it was raining, it was bad weather, and then I tried it again this morning because it's dead calm in the morning. And there is one issue with the Mavic Air 2 that I'm kind of not liking. It doesn't seem to have the stability when it comes to hyperlapse that other drones have had. Every hyperlapse that I've shot seems like there's a little bit of a bounce, like there's no image stabilization in it. So I got up early in the morning so that there was no wind, there was no breeze to kind of like cause the drone to bounce around and try to shoot this thing. And I just kind of like flew through, like I said, 3 batteries, 3 different sessions with each battery, and try to get it to stitch together. So issue number 1, for some reason, the save button doesn't work as a file button doesn't work as a file button. It works as a save button. The next thing was, for issue number 2, is that once I actually got in and initiated or executed a flight plan, for some reason that flight plan would change, and it would cause the video to be either longer or shorter. But I said, hey, I got enough footage, I'm going to try to work my way through it. The next issue was, once I got all the video footage, I just dropped it into an editing software, and I wanted to see what the accuracy was. I wanted to see whether or not the video footage was a 1-to-1 overlapping each other, because when I tried it with the Mavic 2 Pro, you could definitely see the difference. It looked like one video file was zoomed in further than the other, and I'm only assuming that that was because the GPS location was not identical to where I shot the first video. So if I was 20 foot back, you're going to get a zoomed in or zoomed out image. So, with this one, I think I'll give DJI some credit, because it seemed like there was a high level of accuracy to the videos that I pulled. In fact, the only videos that didn't really match up were probably the ones that were kind of altered when I executed the flight plan again. So a video file that may have been shorter or longer, definitely, couldn't get it to match up, because now it's shooting that same 5-minute video or 5-second video in a shorter amount of time or a longer amount of time. So a video would go from like 20 to 30 seconds, something like that. I can't remember. So 13 to 20 seconds, I believe is what it was. Yeah, I planned it for 13 seconds and it ended up being 20. But all in all, out of the 7 or 8 video files that I shot, the majority of them were pretty accurate. I mean, as you can see, laying them side by side, playing through the video, there were only a couple that just didn't line up. But again, there's a lot of stuttering and jumpiness in there. And I personally, I'm not, a high-end video editor, so I did not know how to kind of like create a smooth transition. I tried everything. I tried, cutting a little scene out and doing the transparency. But when you do the transparency, then you can actually see the differences in video footage. If the camera happened to bump, at the same location or at different locations, you're going to see that when you do the transition. So I really couldn't, get it to kind of link up. It looked okay, but it just didn't look super smooth. It almost, again, I don't know how DJI did it with their, when they did their little advertisement, but I couldn't get this thing to sync up for anything. So, accuracies. Issue number 3. Good, but not great. You fly it over and over again, even in situations where, I just literally hit the start again button, it flew back to the starting point and then flew again. The accuracy just wasn't the greatest. And I think the last issue was exposure, and it wasn't a drone issue. It's more of an operator issue. So I'm going to take this one as a hit because when it comes to trying to shoot a smooth transition from day to night, you're going to get different lighting situations, and the drone is going to automatically compensate for the different lighting situations. So the first time I shot this thing, I went and shot it and then dropped it into the editing software and found out that the ISO had automatically adjusted. So every video that I shot looked almost identical. I'll give DJI that too. The image quality from dark to midday almost looked identical with the exception of the high ISO noise that you would see in a video when you shoot like 3200 3600 ISO. But yeah, that's a user error. So in that situation, what I realized that I had to do was I had to use a manual ISO. So the thing about using a manual ISO and then trying to do multiple videos to kind of get them to stitch together is, at night or, when the sun is down, I'm shooting 3200 ISO to give me, a lit up sky enough that I can see what's going on, because literally a 100 or 200 ISO is jet black. You can't see anything. But then once the sun starts coming up and then you start moving into different videos, you're going to have to adjust the ISO. And that's kind of hard to do when you're looking at, the screen and you're curious, how dark was the last video? So difficult again, trying to, manage the ISO. In auto mode, it's not going to work. And then, in manual mode, you're just going to, I literally went back in. I was like, let me look at the last video footage and kind of try to eyeball it and then set the ISO so that I am now gradually getting lighter and lighter and lighter. And the last option would be to kind of cheat it and fix it in editing software, which again, I assume that's what DJI did because it absolutely did not work for me. So, I wanted to kind of talk about that because, like I said, you're probably going to go out, you don't want to even know how much time I did that. It seemed like it was hours, to be honest with you. It seemed like I actually took hours to shoot that. I know on the first attempt, I was actually shooting 13, I said 13 seconds. I can't remember, but I think I was shooting 10-second videos, which took about 13 to 20 minutes to shoot. Yes, it was like 10 to 13 second videos or something like that, a couple seconds, but it actually took the drone upwards of 15 to 20 minutes, I'll say, to shoot, because I was trying to keep it so that I didn't reach half battery. I was trying to shoot it so that I got half battery, and then I could run in the house, stick the battery on the charger, and then, go back out and shoot 2 more videos and then come get that battery off the charger. Again, it is a job to try to get this to work. So again, I'm only going to say, great advertisement, DJI, but I'm assuming that you use a high-end editing software to kind of pull that off. But there is probably some positive use for the Waypoints library, and that is, if you want to do like scenery change or I said scenery, but if you want to do the seasons change, so let's say you set up a waypoints plan and you live in a forest or a wooded area, and you set up a waypoints plan that you fly over that wooded area like once a day, and then you just let it take those videos, that is going to give you an amazing transition. Or you could even set up that if there's a building being built in your area, like a house being built in your area, and you want to do daily progress on a house, and then you shoot it day to day, that's going to give you an amazing time lapse of, like a building going up or a house going up. I just don't think it's cut out for, shooting on a day, like a 1 day session to try to get like a day to night thing. I think it maybe the use would probably be better for, like I said, using it for long-term time lapse instead of short-term time lapse. But other than that, man, again, I'm still liking a lot about the DJI, but I did have one more problem or issue, and I talked about it in my previous video where I was having sensor issues. I tried to shoot the startup video that you saw when this video started, and it was like sun was up and it was like a decent fog, but when I pointed that camera up. I don't know. Maybe it's not the camera, but maybe just the sensors or the cameras in the drone, the obstacle avoidance sensors. As I was flying toward that sun, it kept hitting the brakes like every 3 seconds. It was like beep, stop, it hit the brakes, beep, stop, hit the brakes, beep, stop, hit the brakes. So I'm only assuming that it's doing this because the obstacle avoidance sensors are being overwhelmed when you're flying directly into the sun. If you saw one of my previous videos, I believe, I can't remember who said it, man. I would love to call you guys out, but someone made a very funny joke that it was going off so often that they call it a daylight sensor. That's how bad it was. Like if I was flying in a certain direction, I would get this constant beep from the front or from the rear. And from the front, what it does is it locks up the brakes because it thinks you're going to crash into something. So the only way for me to fix that, and if you're having this issue, was to turn the obstacle avoidance off and fly the drone in sport mode. I didn't have any issues because I knew I wasn't going to hit anything. But yeah, it prevented the drone from, well, it did beep a couple of times. I still got the little warnings on the screen. It gives you these little bars at the top and bottom of the screen that lets you know that you're approaching an obstacle and from which direction. But it was able to fly without hitting the brakes every couple seconds. So other than that, yeah, like I said, I am really digging the Mavic Air 2. I will not probably jump on the Mavic 3 when it comes out because I'm kind of beyond, these camera drone thing. In fact, I said I'm going to transition out of Mavic drones or DJI drones, and I'm going to transition into, Cinewhoop style and racing drones, because if you guys haven't seen what people are doing with a Cinewhoop drone and a GoPro, or a racing drone and a GoPro, you're missing out on a lot. And, without making this video too much longer, it is really exciting, and I want to try it, and I want to make it work. So, yeah, that's it. That's all I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about, that Waypoints library, how it was working for me. It's just maybe an everyday vlog, not a tutorial, unless you got something out of, how to set up your waypoints or something. But hey, man, thanks for watching the channel. That's all I got for today. I will talk to you later.